Hello from a windy Kampala in Uganda. My name is Becky, and as we continue to remain in a partial lockdown, at least here in Uganda, continuing to record these videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for you. Thank you for joining me here today for some more thoughts from the Bible. So, in Wednesday's video this week, I talked about a time when the king of Israel, a man named Ahab, and the king of Judah, a man named Jehoshaphat, sat down together and discussed going to battle against the nation of Aram to take back a place called Ramoth Gilead. Now, Ahab was not a particularly shining example of what a king should be. He continually led the people away from God, along with his wife Jezebel. But the same was not true of Jehoshaphat. Indeed, he was one of Judah's pretty good kings. He followed after God pretty wholeheartedly, and that's why I find this particular passage in 2 Chronicles chapter 18, verses 28 and 29 to be quite strange. So King Ahab of Israel and King Jehoshaphat of Judah led their armies against Ramoth Gilead. The king of Israel said to Jehoshaphat, "As we go into battle, I will disguise myself so no one will recognize me. But you wear your royal robes." So the king of Israel disguised himself and they went into battle. Now, I've always wondered why Jehoshaphat would have been willing, why he would have agreed to go along with Ahab into this battle in the first place, especially after hearing a prophet of the Lord telling them both basically that they weren't going to win. Even more, why would he be okay dressing up in his royal robes when Ahab wouldn't do that, when he was too scared? It would surely make Jehoshaphat more of a target than the king of Israel. Now, I kind of think there must have been a little bit more to this conversation than what we see in this brief account in the Bible. Maybe Ahab was a really persuasive person. Maybe he managed to convince Jehoshaphat that there wasn't really any risk, that their armies were stronger, that there was certainly going to be no danger to himself. Maybe Jehoshaphat was willing to do anything to keep this newfound peace between the nations of Israel and Judah together, even if he knew it wasn't the best decision. I don't know. I have no idea, but it seems like a bit of a crazy decision to me, particularly as Jehoshaphat must have known all about Ahab and about his worship of foreign gods and his forsaking of the Lord, the God of their ancestors. But in the battle, though, God miraculously saves Jehoshaphat after the chariot riders of Aram try and get to him, thinking that this must be the king of Israel, this man in all his finery. And Ahab instead is struck by a random arrow that is shot just completely at somebody's whim across the battlefield, and it hits the king of Israel and kills him. Now, I imagine that Jehoshaphat, once the battle was done, must have returned home to Judah with his tail between his legs, He must have felt that defeat that must have cost the lives of many of his own men in a fight that wasn't his own, supporting a cause that was not righteous. In fact, the moment he gets back home, the prophet Jehu says this to him: "Why should you help the wicked and love those who hate the Lord?" he asked the king. "Because of what you have done, the Lord is very angry with you." Now, I'm pretty sure Jehoshaphat probably knew this already, and yet hearing it from God through Jehu must have made him squirm. He had made a real mistake here, and it would have been so easy for God to have written him off, to have said, "Clearly, you are not following after me, are you, Jehoshaphat? I'm going to bring somebody else in now who's going to rule this kingdom with a little bit more sense. But that is not what God said. Jehu's prophecy continued. After saying the Lord is very angry with you, he said, even so, there is some good in you. For you have removed the Asherah poles throughout the land, and you have committed yourself to seeking God. God says, yes, you have definitely made a mistake here. I am aware of it, and I am not pleased with it. But I know you, and I know that there's still good in you, and I know that you still have an amazing potential, and I am not writing you off yet, because there is still work that you can do for me. There is more that you can achieve on my behalf. There is more that you can do. I see the good in you. And that's what Jehoshaphat goes on and does. He does good things for the Lord. In fact, the rest of 2 Chronicles chapter 19 tells us all about some of the amazing things that this king of Judah did. He appointed judges to rule the country fairly, and he went on personal tours around the nation of Judah to encourage people to worship God, to encourage them to give their hearts fully to him. Though he made a mistake, and it almost cost him his life, and it almost certainly cost the lives of some of his men, he went on to do some pretty great things. And at the end of his life, the Bible describes Jehoshaphat as a good king, doing what was pleasing to the Lord. Those final words don't remember anything about the time when he angered God, when he made a mistake. He did what was pleasing to the Lord. This man was not perfect. He did the wrong thing on a couple of occasions that we know of, choosing the wrong path. And yet God's mercy was enough for him. There was no mistake too great for God to write him off and say, well, you're done, Jehoshaphat. There is nothing I can do with you. You are too far gone. There was no mistake too great for that to happen. And the same is true for you and for me. No matter what you've done, no matter where you've been, God can still turn everything around for you and give you a second chance or a third chance or a fifth chance or a 20th chance, whatever you need. Even in those moments where you know you've been a little bit of an idiot, and I know we've all had those moments in our lives, even then, God's forgiveness can extend to cover us, giving us another opportunity to live our lives for him and to bring glory to his name. It doesn't matter what anybody tells you about your life. If anyone has told you that you are not enough, that you have messed up too many times, that there is no hope for you, that is not true. That is not what God says over your life. And if you have done something wrong today, then I just so encourage you, bring it before God, because there is no sin, there is no mistake too great that he will not forgive you for it and turn your life around. Thank you so much for joining me again. For more thoughts from the Bible, we'll be here again next week on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, so please do join me then.